We understand everyone is at a different place in their fitness journey. Most people come in with a handful of things they're really good at, but we all have a few movements that are holding us back. We want our athletes to have the ability to individualize their training to their specific needs, which is why we are excited to announce the addition of skill programs as part of TTT Compete. If you need help getting better at things like the snatch, clean and jerk, pistols, handstand walk, handstand push-ups, toes to bar, chest to bar, ring muscle-ups, or double unders, go to trainingthinktank.com to learn more.
You haven't seen it, so we can't have a discussion. I know your opinion on movies and mine often is very different.
Yeah, it's okay. Everybody likes different things.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome everybody. It's Brandon Dormoon.
Hey. Just had
Hey, how come that didn't work?
get a little bit of water in my system.
Oh, the volume's turned down.
I tried to give Brandon the applause one.
Brandon, did you need water in your system because potentially you're hot?
I am hot. I am not heat acclimated.
Are you heat acclimated or not? Because it's been pretty hot, but very dry.
I feel like I'm actually pretty well acclimated to heat. I grew up in Florida.
Are we in an El Nino?
An El Nino?
I have no clue.
I saw this the other day. I think we're in another El Nino.
Yo, did you ever listen to the new metal band back like 25 years ago called El Nino?
I have heard of El Nino, but
It was
not
like
sure
a
that I could.
Spanish new metal band.
Did you ever see Chris Farley's Yo Soy El Nino
Oh,
skit?
man, I miss Farley.
Oh, man. Saturday Night Live
Fantastic.
back in the day.
He was wonderful. Speaking of heat acclimation, have you seen the videos of the guys, I guess they're just called soldiers in the UK passing out?
Yeah, they're the
stand
Royal Guard.
The Royal Guard, yes.
Yeah.
This
That's
is
what
like
it
something that just happened?
Yeah, like yesterday.
I just saw a video of it, and it's crazy because they have to stand still and like at attention, and it's I guess so hot over there that they're just passing. They're in like wool uniforms with hats on, and it's pretty wild.
You think it's legit or they're like, fuck this job?
Dude, I saw a video of one of them, and he was playing a brass instrument. It was either a trumpet or a trombone. Someone's going to be like, they don't play those. It was a brass instrument he was playing. This was, in the UK. Passed out, fell on the ground, was out for a minute or two, got up, and literally started playing, picked up in the song exactly where he was.
Nice.
Good for them.
Damn.
So right now, at least here in Georgia, it's starting to get hot finally.
We're moving into summer.
We have our fake outs, but now it's like, okay, we're here. I'm sure that that's happening for other people as well. Maybe if you're who's cold right now, they'll listen to this 6 months later. Is it Australia?
Geography class?
We'll just say Canada to show.
No. On the other side, don't they like flip them? Come on, help me out.
Yes, and
don't make me look dumb.
The Southern Hemisphere.
Australia's going into winter.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can listen to this later, but what the frick's happening out there, boys? Workouts are getting tougher.
It does get harder, and I think for those that are preparing for Kyle and I just did a workout. We finished the podcast. We did a workout. We both went really hard. This is going to be challenging.
Yeah.
But those that are preparing for off-season competitions, which happen all over the summer, we have a couple local ones. I know people are doing qualifiers out in the gym right now. And then for those that are preparing for the games, this time of year here, it's obviously very hot, and it's going to be hot in Madison. So we are thinking as coaches, how do we prepare our athletes that are either competing in person over the summer or for those that are going to the games?
And a lot of people just train in CrossFit gyms that don't have air conditioning.
Open door CrossFit gyms in the summer. Dude, it is very surprising how much heat can actually affect someone's performance in a CrossFit workout. And this was driven home for me the most personally when I was prepping for Masters Fitness Collective in 2020 COVID year. They had this chipper workout. It was an old nasty chipper, like the classic ones they used to do at regionals, right? I think it was like 50 reps of everything up and back down the ladder, starting with a row, finishing with a row. And I tested it, I think 2 times, maybe 3 times in training. And I was never even close to finishing under the 24-minute cap. It was like taking me 26 and a half minutes or something like that. And I was always doing it in the middle of TTT. And this is before we had the big ass fan.
No, there's no air circulation.
Yes. So it's probably, it's close to 100 degrees in the middle of the gym. And it's like the middle of the gym where all the humidity and all the body heat from everybody just kind of like congregates. Yeah. It's nasty in the middle. Right. And I was never close to finishing, not even close. And then I did it on game day, finished it, exact same workout, same weights, same strategy, finished it in 22 and a half minutes, but the facility was air conditioned. And when I got to the end and I was rowing before, I would get back to the rower and I would have 20 seconds left on the rower. Well, here I was like way ahead of the time cap and I'd be rowing at like 800 and dying and like progressively getting worse and worse and worse, 800 cals per hour. And then all of a sudden here I am in an air-conditioned competition floor.
This feels good.
And I'm recovering as the row.
So you felt good as well?
Dude,
Because I mean, part of that, you got to have the adrenaline rush of competing.
I was feeling progressively better as I was getting deeper into the workout versus feeling progressively worse and worse and worse and holding like 1,200 calories per hour.
Well, I think we all know that to be true, right? You go work out and it's hot and it's like, man, what's happening? Why, Kyle? Tell us the science.
Okay, so here's the science of heat. And this is, this ties back to all the endurance podcasts that we've done recently as well. So the cardiovascular system is a closed loop. Okay, so that means that your heart and all the blood vessels that go through your body, it's a closed loop, it's a closed circuit. And you can only pump so much blood through that system at one time. When you're exercising, you got to have a lot of blood delivering oxygen to the working muscles. So let's just say you're doing row and thruster, row and wall ball, one of our classic examples, right? So you're going to have to deliver a ton of blood and oxygen to your legs to deal with, the pace and speed and exercise intensity that you need to maintain to do your row and wall ball workout well. When it's cold, you don't have to shuttle blood to the skin in order to offload heat because your body is just offloading heat to the environment, right? We lose most of our heat through just evaporation and then convection. Like those are the two ways we lose it. We just lose it out to the environment. And when it's hot, we sweat, which increases the rate that we lose heat to the environment. Now, the problem is when it's hot, you have to put some blood out to the skin because the blood is hot. It's what's carrying the heat through your body to offload it to the environment. Your legs are doing all this work and they're using all this blood and oxygen, and most of your cardiac output is being shuttled to your legs. So let's say in the cold, like 90% of your cardiac output is going to do exercise. But then as the temperature increases, a lower percentage of that total cardiac output, remember that's fixed, is going to go to the legs. More and more and more of it has to go to the skin to carry heat to the skin to basically offload it.
Freaking skin. So if we just cut off our skin.
Wow, this is going in a dark direction real quick.
No, but there's practical things that...
Yeah, so we need to find ways to be able to kind of quote unquote cool our system so that we can get the blood to the right areas and use it efficiently.
Yeah. So one of the things that we know is that thicker athletes have a harder time cooling themselves off. When I say thicker, I mean like more muscle mass. Why? Because they're producing more metabolic heat from exercise, and they don't really have that much more skin surface area to exchange heat out into the environment. So if you're someone who's a thicker athlete who has major heat tolerance issues, one of your strategies might actually be to lose some weight, to reduce your total body mass, even if that means losing some muscle mass and building a little bit of endurance if you're a big, strong athlete, because it will help you deal with some of the heat. Another simple thing, since we do lose so much of it to evaporation, is put a fan on you, right? Blowing air across your body, especially when you're sweating, it's going to pull more of that heat out of your skin. So like simple strategy in the summer is to put a fan on you when you're training. Like the big ass fans we have in the gym are awesome. Even just like a basic, fan in your garage gym would be a great strategy for improving performance. It's not going to make you adapt to the heat any better,
right,
but it does take advantage of like the physiological mechanism that our body cools itself with.
Right. So what about the athlete that knows they're going to do an in-person competition this summer? Let's say they have 2 months to prepare. What are some of the things that you're telling them to kind of start to learn how to acclimate to the heat so that they can do well in the competition that may be outdoors?
Okay, so that's actually a really, really good question. And there's two components to what makes us hot. Well, there's a little more than that, but there's two major ones when you're exercising. One is the ambient temperature of the air. So like, for example, if the air is 90 degrees and the humidity's high, right? It's hot and you're not going to be able to lose much temperature to sweat because the sweat isn't going to be able to evaporate, right, because the humidity in the air is high. But the other one is you heat up from being in the sun. And that's where a lot of people, they train in the heat, but they train with an open, in an open garage door box where they're shielded from the sun. And we see this with games athletes, right?
I was going to say Murph a couple years ago where they didn't have any shield. People were like passing out on the
field. And it's not like they hadn't acclimated to the heat. A lot of those people were doing sauna training before they showed up, training in the, in the box where it's hot with the garage doors open. But what they weren't doing is they weren't absorbing the radiant heat from the sun. And that's one of the problems that people are going to have. So if you're going to be competing, in a live environment in the summer, and you're going to be competing outside, which most of these things, they are outside and they don't have shade, you're going to have to adapt yourself and have strategies for dealing with both of those, dealing with the ambient temperature of the air and dealing with the radiant absorption of heat from the sun. And so adapting to heat, like ambient heat, is pretty straightforward. You just need to subject yourself to that environment and learn to exercise in it, or do things like sauna acclimation training, which is as simple as doing, 3 sessions of 20 minutes at 150 degrees. That's what the research shows, that can, done over 2 to 3 to 4 weeks before a competition, can dramatically improve performance in ambient temperature heat. But
can I stop you real quick?
Yeah, go.
So your example earlier where you were saying that you did you tested that workout 3 times and then you did it on game day.
Yeah.
And what was it? 4 minutes better?
At least 4 minutes faster.
Okay. So let's just say it was 4 minutes faster. If you had done heat acclimation training, how much better could you have gotten that time still testing it your final time in the heat? Does that make sense?
The crazy thing is I was doing heat acclimation training because that is right around the time that I had bought my sauna. So I was actually using the sauna daily, 190, like 15 to 20 minutes.
So you can improve, you just can't get to that top end?
Yeah. Performance in, I don't have a good word for it, but like moderate temperatures, 65 to 70 degrees is always going, the ceiling for performance is going to be higher than hot temperatures.
For sure.
Maybe you just get better at tolerating it, like mentally and that kind of thing.
So just from my own personal experience, adapting to, heat and doing sauna training and things like that, the psychological factor is huge. Now there's also physiological factors, like we build blood volume, right? So you can sweat more. Man, do you hear that wheeze? That workout.
Yes.
I've got a little Fran lung from doing actually the MSC qualifier. But no, there's physiological things that happen, right? We increase our blood volume. So we do improve our tolerance to heat, but the psychological factor is the big one, which
is not nothing.
It's not nothing. One of the exercise is regulated by a central governor. Now I know there's some debate about that, but basically our brains regulate our exercise intensity and basically set the performance limit for us. And the more exposure you have to a particular stimulus, i.e. exercise in the heat, the better you're going to be able to deal with
100%.
that, right? And so I think one of the advantages of acclimating, whether that's training in an open box or training outside when it's hot, or doing, sauna acclimation, is that psychologically you realize that I'm not going to die from this. And I've now done, 45-minute sauna bike zone 2 stuff, which we were talking about zone 2 in a previous podcast, but I've done that, and you get hot to the point where I was like, this is the hottest I've ever been in my entire life. But I realized, like, I'm okay.
Right.
Like I'm not going to die here. Maybe I was close.
I mean, you are pushing the threshold there. Not
Yes.
that you're going to die, but your body is thinking, I need to find a way to adapt to this because this is uncomfortable.
It's funny. The thoughts
you're creating a stressor.
The thoughts that go through your head are, man, am I on the verge of death? And no, like I was like, Kyle, no. Like the fact that you have these cognizant thoughts right now is telling you you're probably not on the verge of death. Plus, you can just get out of this, and I've got a cold tub right next to it, so I can go ice down real fast. But
2 quick ways for ambient acclimation. Ambient air temperature acclimation would be if you have a sauna, or you can go to a gym, like there's a One Life down the road, or for those that have like a Lifetime Fitness or these other Globo gyms, a lot of them have saunas. You could go and do that. And
three times a week.
20
minutes per session, 155 degrees Fahrenheit is the basic recommendation for heat acclimation.
And then the other option for those that maybe don't have access.
Have you ever gone to one of these Globo gyms and gotten their sauna?
Yeah, they don't tend to be anywhere near the effective temperature.
That was my question. Like,
there are plenty that can get to 155.
I never see the temperature anywhere.
That is true. Well, it depends on which gym you go to. There are a couple that have where you can set it, and most of them are anywhere from 150
all 3 of the ones around here that I've been
170.
to, I've not seen temperatures. So what do you do? You just hope.
Just bring your pocket thermometer with you, Chris.
Yeah. The better option for those that don't have access or don't want to go to a gym would be to start practicing outside.
And I think this is, to this point, this is a more effective strategy for acclimating to the heat if you have access to heat. Now, not everyone has a hot climate, and so they can't necessarily go out and do this. But if you have access to heat and you know you're going to be competing in heat, you got to go do it. You got to be outside or open the bay doors or whatever it is. You have to feel that heat, and even train without a fan. I think that's one thing to keep in mind is if you're, my God, that wheeze is horrible. If you're competing in a live environment outside, you're not going to have a fan on you.
Right.
Right. So why would you train with a fan on you.
So here's the question that I have, and people have asked this too, is if performance is somewhat degraded during, especially the first couple weeks of that, should you offset that with some training still at a controlled temperature, so you're going faster or you're getting certain adaptations, or should everything be outside?
I think you should be doing some stuff faster. And I would speak to that both from research and coaching experience and personal experience.
By that you meant some outside, or some in the heat, some not in the heat.
Right,
a little bit
in
of
a
both.
Controlled environment.
So, and I'm going to extrapolate some other some other research here, but what they basically found is, like, if you do altitude training with people, okay, take them up and you have them live high and train high. So take them up to 5,000 plus feet and just train them there. Their intensity of training decreases. And so when they come back to sea level a couple weeks later, 15 days later, their performance in endurance events is better when it's sub-maximal intensity, but their performance in high-intensity events is not better, because when they were at altitude, they couldn't access those intensities. And so what they found was, like, a live low, train high strategy was better, but even better was live low, train high sometimes, train low sometimes for the high intensity stuff. And so I would argue the same thing here, is that getting access to high intensities is still critically important. So if you can get access to doing work in 65 or 67 degree ambient temperatures with a fan on you, where you can really just blow the doors off.
Hammer it.
Yeah, that is an advantage.
Oh man, we're helping the CrossFit affiliates around the world get two memberships, one at the hot box and one at the pampered ass air conditioned box.
You need 2 rooms, right?
And get a second job so you can afford it.
Yeah. So we're talking, so to be clear, we're talking like high level performance, but also at the same time, like, you could put a Concept 2 bike in your living room, and your living room might be 69 or,
or the difference
degrees.
in standing outside where the sun is exposed, or you're exposed to the sun, and then have a fan on you inside your gym.
100%. So yes, I would say there is an advantage to both of those. And those are your basic strategies for, acclimating to ambient temperature. You can either do the sauna strategy, or you got to train in the heat, and you got to do it. The closer you can mimic your environment, the better you're going to adapt to that environment. Give yourself doses of it, progress it, all the basics apply, progressive overload.
So then we have sun exposure, which is much different, because as everyone that lives in the South knows, this time of year can get, it's like the difference feels like 20 degrees from inside the gym, even though it's hot, to stepping outside, and now the sun, you're exposed to the sun. It's hitting your skin, especially if you take your shirt off.
Totally different.
It is.
It's brutal.
Dude, when
Are you trying to be funny?
No,
It sucks.
We did a workout. We did the 400 meter runs for the United workout the other day, and in between, it was a partner workout. So me and Mike were both doing 400 meter runs. If I just stood in the shade, which but it was better than standing in the sun. But it was crazy how dramatic the difference was. It wasn't
feels
just like,
so much better.
Hey, I feel a little better. It was like I just won the lottery.
I learned that moving from Indiana to North Carolina, and dude, the sun. So the temperature would be 90 degrees, and in Indiana, you stay in the sun, it doesn't feel that much different 90 degrees than when you're in the shade. But you do the same thing in North Carolina, and the sun is just like, it's brutally intense, and it only gets worse as you get closer to the equator. You go further south. So, okay, so how do you deal with heat acclimation from the sun? So I actually had a really long conversation with Alexis about this, because it's a strategy for performance at the CrossFit Games. So I don't want to give away. No, I'm going to give away all the secrets. So the first is, the research is pretty clear that if you cover your head, that's an advantage. But then the color of,
What do you mean cover your head?
like a hat, right? So just wearing a hat is a good thing. But the color of your hat matters, because dark hats absorb more heat from the sun, and they're going to hold that heat on your head. So you want something that's going to be lighter, and even better would be reflective. So I recommended that
why
Alexis.
they got the white hat?
Yeah, that's why I recommended Alexis get a bright white hat, so that it reflects as much sun as possible, and that it's mesh around the side, so it's breathable. So
it's interesting. They actually do this with roofs now. They create reflective material, and I don't know if it actually works on the roof or not, but the concept of that is that it's pushing it back up into the air as opposed to going into your attic.
But I think the best thing that you could do is get some tin foil, and then you can
hey, you never know.
fashion yourself a nice tinfoil hat, and then you'll be good to go. So I think that's the first thing, is cover your head. The color matters. I have this CrossFit Games 2013 bucket hat that's black, and I wear it when I do my yard work, and I just get hot as hell. But I also have another one that bucket hat like that's white on the top, and I don't get as hot when I'm wearing that. So that's like number one. So if you can keep heat off your head, that's going to be a good thing.
Hashtag white hats matter.
Oh God, we're not going there, Chris. Then another thing is the clothes that you wear. So again, wearing dark clothes is going to absorb more heat. It's going to hold more heat on the body. So wearing, white breathable clothes are good. There's even now clothes that have like silver fibers woven into them and various metals that dissipate heat faster woven into them, that when they get wet, they actually wick the moisture away from the body and dissipate it even faster. Now, I don't remember what those are off the top of my head, but lightly colored clothing designed to dissipate heat is actually going to improve performance when you're in a sunny environment. Now, it's not going to do shit for you if you're just in the heat in a box, right? But if you're at the CrossFit Games and you really do want to improve your performance, a white hat and a bright white shirt that breathes really well is going to make a difference.
And for those that haven't tried this, just go outside on a sunny day with a black shirt on and do a workout, and then do the same thing with a lighter color shirt. I thought I had a white shirt on, so I don't have a red shirt. I had a white shirt on while I was just training, and there really is a big difference. I've heard this, and so I tried it myself, and obviously that's N=1, but I've also had athletes do it, and there's a noticeable difference. And to Chris's point earlier, like even like the psychological effect of like, man, I feel hotter, whether you are or not, that can impact the way that you perform.
There's even a little bit of research, and I've never noticed subjective benefit from this, but wearing sunglasses so that you're reducing the amount of sunlight that goes into your eyes can improve endurance performance in bright, hot environments. Now, like I said, I've worn sunglasses for like hard bikes and runs and stuff, and I didn't notice any difference, but that doesn't mean that there isn't potentially some performance advantage for people that are competing at like, high levels.
Sure. Yeah, those are all very tangible things that you guys can try and see if they work for you. I wanted to kind of go down that rabbit hole of like some thermoregulation strategies, if you're cool with that. Like, what are other things that athletes can do in their training? And then also, like, are there maybe some like little tricks that they could do during competition? Like maybe have ice gloves or cold towels or anything like that. So,
ooh.
Yes.
Before we do that,
go, Chris.
Could you give the people who right now, let's say they're like us and the heat's finally starting to hit them, what little things would you say to them? And don't forget your thought right there, Brandon, because that's good. We should go there.
I forgot it already.
See, we need notebooks, Brandon.
What would you tell these people who are like, now in the thick of it and they're thinking about their performance? Like, what should they expect? What kind of dip? What should they be okay with?
Oh, well, if I was 4 minutes slower in a 22 to 26 minute workout, I mean, it's going to affect.
Do y'all see that a lot?
Yes.
People start panicking this time of year. I'm not fit, blah, blah, blah.
Look, the longer the workout, the more it's going to affect it, because a short duration 2 minute Fran workout is not long enough for you to build up enough metabolic heat for you to be affected by it. It's really going to start to get you in that like 12 plus minute time domain, where the hero workouts that everyone loves to do in the summer, the long stuff, that's where it's going to really start to affect you. And so, unless people are doing retest scenarios where they did something in December and now they're doing it again in June, they're probably not going to see performance decreases unless they're doing relatively consistent retest, but they're going to feel the performance decreases. And I think it's just important to understand that that's something that's going to happen to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have any like objective data on that. I'm sure there's something out there you guys could search on PubMed or other places and find what the actual numbers are. But I don't know the actual percentage.
I was going to see if I had anything in here, but nope.
So thermoregulation strategies, I think that the way that I break these up, and I have a sheet here, I think what I'm going to do is, for those that are in compete, because we've had some questions on this, I want to add this to our toolbox. If you go up in the app, it'll take me a day to build this out. But basically, there's a little thing up there that says your gym, and I'll add it as an external link, which, Chris, you're going to have to help me with because you're going to put it on the website. But I'll give you a link on this, and you can actually have this whole sheet, which gives you strategies on supplementation plus thermoregulation strategies, which obviously over the summer can help. External pre-cooling can be very helpful. So you can think about this as cold water exposure, towel exposure, maybe just on the neck, hand exposure, all those things, ice vest. Those are all options for you. Did you want to start there, or do you have something else? And I know you have different notes than I do.
I think there's probably an even easier one, and that is, from a training perspective, it's the fan. We already talked about this. So this is the most accessible to everybody. Put a fan on you, right? So now keep in mind, if you're training for heat acclimation, you don't want to use these strategies. Okay, so everything that we're about to talk about are things to improve performance in the heat. Everything that we have talked about up to this point are heat acclimation strategies. Correct. So everything we talk about now are things that you can do to improve performance in the heat, which is different than trying to make yourself perform better long-term in the heat. Chris, What you got?
I was just saying, this is for the people who can't afford that really nice CrossFit box with the air conditioning and
Well, I think you do both, right? Like if you know you're going to the CrossFit Games, you are trying to acclimate yourself to the heat as best you can, but you're using these strategies on either the days that you really want to perform so you can create that speed that's needed to be able to move at the games, or you're just practicing them to know, like, if I wear this cold vest, or if I put my hands in cold water for 5 minutes before this workout or during the workout or after the workout, whatever, you bring a cooler to the games, you try this, and that can work. So these are just options for you that you would basically try to set yourself up for success in competition.
So I think the simplest is the fan, right? So it leverages your body's already very good cooling system of sweating and just amplifies it. So putting a fan on you while you're on the rower, doing your Metcon, that's going to be your easiest, best bang for your buck. Now, you go to a competition, you're not going to be able to do that. So then you are going to want to start to use some of these pre-cooling.
bang for your buck. Who's paying for these fans?
Cheap fan, right?
Yeah,
best bang for the buck.
To be fair, the first one that I have on my list is cold air exposure. So you can have one of the nice fans that actually creates cool air. That's expensive. Chris, I know you're going to make fun of that, but that is an option for you. But the next best thing is an actual fan. But they do have those in most competitions. So I would identify where that is and make sure that you're utilizing that in warm-ups and before you do your competition, and then right after so that you can calm yourself back down.
There's some great pictures from the CrossFit Games in the past where you can see the athletes that have found, they have these giant circular fans, and they are sitting right in front of those things right after the event for good reason. Whether or not they know that they should be doing that, or it just feels good, so they're gravitating towards it, they're doing the right thing there. But
and the mechanism there, by the way, is we're trying to shunt the blood back to kind of the central systems as opposed to it. Kyle talked about this at the beginning of the podcast, getting up to the skin. So we're basically trying to utilize the blood and where it should be as opposed to trying to cool you off.
So Brandon mentioned pre-cooling, right? So some of those pre-cooling strategies include, cold water immersion, where you would do your ice tub type thing before your event. So basically the structure is you warm up for your event, right? You go through your full warm up, and then you ice tub. And then you get out and you go corral, and then you go compete. And yes, in some sense, it's going to tighten you up and, maybe make it so that it detracts from the warm up to some degree. However, by lowering your skin temperature, you're making it so that you can go longer in the event before your body has to start shunt blood, as Brandon was saying, to the skin to make it so that you actually can go longer and maintain a higher cardiac output to the working muscles for longer in the event. That's the idea of pre-cooling. And I think from an effectiveness perspective, the most effective pre-cooling is the ice tub, right? Because that's going to lower body temperature the most. Then, as you go down the hierarchy, then we've got the ice vest, right? So ice vest can lower core temperature, but not as much as an ice tub. But if you're at a competition, you probably don't have access to get into an ice tub right before your event, because then you're wet, it might affect your grip, on the barbell. Chalk doesn't stick to you very well. It's going to affect you, right? But an ice vest, you can do your warm up and then throw the ice vest on while you're waiting in the corral, go out there, take it off right before your event, and then, perform. It definitely keeps you cooler. We have one that we've used with Travis.
And they actually allow people to wear them, corralled?
Yeah. They you can hide it, but I don't think you would need to hide it. I mean, just wear your ice vest. No one's going to really care. You know who used it? What's his name? The Tukaluke. God.
Lucas Parker?
Lucas Parker, thank you.
Who are you talking
Thank
about?
you. Lucas Parker. I saw him with it all the time.
Oh, that makes sense, yeah.
Yeah.
He was into that. There's some good research that it actually can help and improve performance. So I think that's the most complicated one if you're actually jumping into a tub, because it can stress your warm-up or make it not as effective as you want it to be. And that would be if it's really hot and you're really trying to regulate your temperature. Some of the other ones, the vest or hand cooling.
Hand pre-cooling.
Those are all good options.
One of my favorite strategies is the ice slushies or ice slurries, which I know you've got on your list because we went through this list a long time ago. And basically what you do, this is my favorite way. You take your Gatorade, for people that are watching, take your Gatorade and you take a whole bunch of ice and you put it in a blender and you make a slushie. And then you drink the ice, you drink the slushie, and that creates this ice ball essentially in your gut, which lowers it. I don't know if it lowers your core temperature per se, but it definitely gives you this heat sink where your body can kind of use that cool temperature to keep your whole body colder for longer. But then I always put it in one of those metal, not a double walled metal water bottle, just one of the old school clean canteen water bottles. And then the outside is super cold. So you can cool your hands and you're cooling your, kind of internal body as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great strategy and something that you could do even in the middle of a workout, depending on, the speed of the workout and workout structure where you could have that and just be drinking, cooling your hands, and basically trying to cool yourself as you're competing. So you got your big white bucket hat, your bright white shirt, and you've got your super cold Gatorade slushy or sports drink slushy that you're drinking in the middle of a workout. You're going to be able to keep yourself relatively cool.
That is another option. I would call that internal. So we were talking about the external pre-cooling options that you had. We went over those. The last one, just real quick, would be a towel. And this is just on the back of your neck.
Don't forget to bring it.
Yeah, I mean, literally, I brought this just for this. Like something very small like this, you could do something bigger. But I've done this in competitions where I have something like his blender bottle. Maybe it is like the aluminum cans or something like that, where I can drink and dump to keep the towel cold. You put it on the back of your neck. If I'm doing Murph, that's a really good way to at least regulate my temperature somewhat. Now, is it going to make a huge difference? No, but if it improves my time by a minute, that's winning a competition, right?
Yeah, the best thing. Do you remember when we did Murph and old Tony was spraying us with the hose as we were going?
Water immersion. There we go. Yeah. So I think any ice product that you can put on the back of your neck, any towel, that's a good option. And then for the internal pre-cooling, the best one that I found is to Kyle's point, what he was talking about earlier with the slushy. You literally are making like an old school slushy. And the nice thing is you could even add in amino acids or whatever else you want to put in there, like if something that you like to sip on, and sip on it as you go through the workout. Now, again, these don't work if it's a 5-minute AMRAP where you're sprinting the entire time. But if it is a long endurance event, think about like 333s at the games, or they did the long workout last year. I don't remember what it was called. The one, Capital.
The Capital.
Yeah. You could have something with you if you wanted it, and you could sip on that to keep you cool, or any other long event.
Can you imagine seeing Travis running down for the Capital last year, but he has one of those runner belts that has the 2 little water bottle pockets on it. And Travis is going down.
It could help.
He's got one he's dumping on his head and one he's sipping as he's going. Man, that would have been so Travis with his white bucket hat, because he's got that. If you look back many CrossFit games ago, but Travis is out in the front of the run with his reflective bucket hat on. Look at Travis using all of these strategies to improve performance here.
Yeah. One of the other internal ones, I've never used it, and I actually don't know how you would actually perform this, but it's air inhalation with cold air. Cold, dry air, you're inhaling it before a workout, but there is some research on that. I just haven't dove into that.
For those of you with exercise-induced asthma like me, that would be the worst imaginable thing that you could do. So I actually participated in some asthma studies in college, and basically what they did is they had you breathing through this mask that was connected to a tank that had super dry, cold air. And it was guaranteed to elicit like the worst asthma ever. That seems like
so maybe don't do it.
It seems like, while it may be a strategy, it seems like not the greatest one, depending on.
And then the last one, as far as, sorry, do you have a question? Inhaling or digesting something, menthol has been known to work for this. I don't know the mechanisms of that. Obviously, we know menthol cools. So do you know?
I had looked into this when we originally came up with this list all the way back in like 2015 or 16 when we were like working on this originally. I looked at it, and basically it tricks your nervous system into thinking that it's cooler than it is. And it's inhaled, or like even like those little menthol, I don't know, what are those, the Halls, cough drop kind of thing, right? Like I could use one of those right now to help.
Well, this is interesting. I actually want to read it. So the cold sensation, to your point, of periodic menthol mouth rinse during exercise has been shown to enhance cycling capacity by 9%. So they were doing a workout that was 45 plus minutes long. They had a 5-minute improvement almost, albeit not associated with typical changes in body temperature. So it's tricking. You're tricking your body essentially with typical changes in body temperature, but in response to an 8 liter a minute of increase in ventilation and a 15% reduction in the heart rate. That is a perceived rating of effort, and
a lower RPE. So that's what's okay. So I think this is really interesting. I mentioned earlier, like there's a central governor, right? Your brain regulates exercise, and there are strategies like that trick your brain into thinking it's cooler. Or there's acclimation strategies that tell your brain like, hey, we can handle more and more and more and more heat just by exposing yourself to those acclimation strategies. I find that the fact that it's not a physiological adaptation, that it's a psychological adaptation, or like tricking your brain. I think that's one of the most fascinating things about exercises.
Yeah. I actually want to do more research on this. Maybe we'll come back. And you know what's crazy about this is the guys that were doping during the, I guess, late 90s, early 2000s were getting about 10% gains with the Tour de France, or the cyclists, right?
Yeah.
And they're getting 9% gains.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, that's just...
There's a caveat
yes,
there, right?
But it's just crazy to think that you can have a huge improvement in heat because of something like that.
I think if you repeated that same study with highest category, I think it's Cat 1 cyclist, you would see maybe a point
nothing. But for the average Joe that wants to improve in a competition.
And feel better while they're doing it.
Correct.
I think that's a big thing, is to make it so it's not such a suffer
My
fest.
heat training strategy is just do all your workouts in Crocs. Sport mode when you need it.
Sport mode.
He actually wore the Crocs when we did 1K intervals the other day. The entire time.
Running?
No. Sorry. We were on the ski erg, but still.
Okay.
No, but I ran with Lauren Fisher and did mile repeats in Crocs.
In Crocs?
And I squat in Crocs now.
My kids
It's a heat-saving technique.
Hey, my kids wear Crocs all over the place, and they convert to sport mode when they're
sport mode.
Sport
What
mode
is sport
only
mode?
when you need it.
the little strap that.
Right here. See?
Oh yeah, he's.
Oh, so you just
I'm in
flip
sport
it.
mode right
Here,
now.
can you toss that
I don't
over here
need to be, but
so I can show the
then you
audience
can be
sport
in
mode?
casual mode.
Okay.
Chris, can I show
And then-
the audience
Oh,
sport
yeah.
mode?
And then sport mode is flipping it behind your heel.
So this is casual mode, and this is sport
Yep.
mode.
Okay.
I think-
I'm not convinced.
Here, real quick, I think the takeaway that I'm getting if I'm listening to this episode is that a lot of those things you mentioned are like, for the high end of performance, you're going to get a little bit of an edge. Whereas the rest of it's like, you're just going to have, like the real takeaway is like, you're just going to have to deal with your numbers are going to go down during hotter times of the year.
I think for the high level people, these are strategies that can give them somewhere between 10th and top 5, or 15th and top 5.
But don't
So it
fixate
matters.
all over these for people just training.
Well, let
right?
me follow that up. Like, it matters for them because that's money in the bank, right?
Yeah.
15th to 5th is a huge difference at the CrossFit Games in terms of payout and sponsorships and media.
Exactly. 0 of those people are listening to this.
Exactly. That's not true.
Okay, 2 of them.
I can follow that up with hard facts if I need. No. But for people that are just training, these strategies make them feel better while they're doing it. So it's not the difference between, $5,000 and $10,000 in prize money, but for them, it's the difference in just like feeling better, recovering faster, those kind of things. Because it legit will allow them to perform better and recover faster from exercising the heat, so that they can do more.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing, right? One, it's more enjoyable because you're not miserable all the time. But 2, especially if you're not worrying about like actually acclimating to the heat, you just want to perform better in the summertime where you always feel like you have that dip. By doing some of these strategies, you can actually still perform like it's cool outside, or it's like the spring. It's 70 degrees or 65 degrees. So I'm still comfortable where I can push myself to add a new stressor so that I can adapt to whatever I'm working on. If I'm doing my 1K intervals with Chris and I feel a little bit cooler, now I can actually hit my target numbers and adapt to that.
All right. I think that's a good ending point. Little tease, maybe in the future. What training changes happen when you're in the extreme cold? Is more cold always better?
No, there's definitely a point.
And that's all the time we have.
Oh, Chris, I wanted to answer that question.
Briefly.
Okay. There's definitely a decrease in performance below a certain temperature threshold.
And that's all the time we have.
There we go. I won't run outside.
No, it's a
super
good
cold.
tease. We'll do another episode another day. All right. See you.
Stand by the fire. Put your hands in the fire. It'll warm you up.
Good strategy. Except for smoke inhalation. Now we got a whole nother problem.